Melissa Gilbert, best known for her iconic role as Laura Ingalls on Little House on the Prairie, has finally spoken out about a story fans have been wondering about for decades: her relationship with fellow actress Melissa Sue Anderson. At 61, Gilbert is breaking her long-standing silence and revealing the truth behind the rumors, misunderstandings, and media speculation that have surrounded these two stars of one of television's most beloved series for years. The public only saw the smiling, wholesome friendship portrayed on screen, but behind the scenes, the dynamic between Gilbert and Anderson was far more complicated than anyone imagined. Fans speculated about tension, rivalry, or unspoken conflicts, and some even wondered if their off-screen relationship matched the harmony viewers adored. But until now, Melissa Gilbert's side of the story had never been fully heard. In her candid revelation, Gilbert shares intimate details about their professional and personal interactions, the pressures of working on a long-running show as teenagers, and the challenges of navigating fame at such a young age. She opens up about the moments of friction, the misunderstandings, and the lessons learned that shaped her career and her personal growth. This is not just a story about two actresses. It's a glimpse into the harsh realities of Hollywood for young stars, the complexities of friendship under public scrutiny, and the emotional journey of two women growing up in the spotlight. Gilbert's confession is raw, heartfelt, and eye-opening, giving fans a perspective they've never seen before. For anyone who ever loved Little House on the Prairie and wondered what life was really like behind the scenes, this is the truth Melissa Gilbert has been holding close for decades, and the story is more surprising and emotional than anyone expected. Melissa Gilbert's life has always been intertwined with Little House on the Prairie. From the moment she first stepped onto the set as young Laura Ingalls, her world changed forever. The cameras, the lights, the endless scripts, it was a dream for a child actor. But behind the wholesome smiles and idyllic prairie scenes, the reality of working on a long-running television show was far more complex than viewers could imagine. Central to that complexity was her relationship with fellow actress Melissa Sue Anderson, who played Mary Ingalls. On screen, their bond appeared perfect: sisters, friends, companions navigating the joys and challenges of frontier life. Yet behind the cameras, Gilbert reveals, the dynamic between them was nuanced, sometimes difficult, and rarely as simple as the show made it appear. Growing up in the spotlight is never easy. For Melissa Gilbert, working alongside Melissa Sue Anderson came with its own pressures. Both young actresses were navigating adolescence under the constant gaze of producers, directors, and millions of viewers. Each had different personalities, coping styles, and expectations for their careers. Gilbert recalls moments when small misunderstandings or differing work habits caused tension on set. Simple disagreements over lines, scenes, or improvisation sometimes escalated because there was nowhere to escape, no private life outside the prairie. Yet, Gilbert emphasizes that these moments were part of growing up together. In a high-pressure environment, the conflicts weren't malicious, but they were real, human, and formative. For instance, on long shooting days, small frustrations built up. Anderson, highly disciplined and focused, would approach scenes differently than Gilbert, whose natural curiosity sometimes led her to experiment. Both approaches had merit, but the differences occasionally caused friction. Despite the tension, there were also moments of camaraderie and mutual respect. The actresses shared experiences that few outside the show could understand: navigating fame, balancing work with school, and handling the expectations of fans who idolized them. Gilbert's reflections reveal that the relationship was never static. It evolved as both girls matured, facing challenges together, learning from mistakes, and supporting each other when it mattered most. By the end of her account, Gilbert paints a picture of a relationship that was multifaceted, a mix of admiration, occasional conflict, shared struggles, and lasting bonds. This first chapter of Truth sets the stage for a deeper understanding of what life behind the scenes really looked like, beyond the smiles, scripts, and prairie fields. It's a story of friendship tested, lessons learned, and two young actresses finding their own paths in a world that demanded perfection, while allowing very little room for error. As Melissa Gilbert continued to reflect on her years on Little House on the Prairie, she revealed that the teenage years on set were some of the most challenging, not only because of the pressures of fame, but also because of her evolving relationship with Melissa Sue Anderson. By the time the show entered its later seasons, both girls were no longer children. They were teenagers trying to find their own identities, while performing under the constant scrutiny of cameras, fans, and producers. Gilbert admits that the growing responsibilities and expectations sometimes created tension. On days when schedules ran long and emotions ran high, small disagreements would turn into notable moments of friction. "We were both ambitious," Gilbert explained. "Melissa Sue wanted to do everything perfectly, and I wanted to experiment. Sometimes that clashed, and it was inevitable. The tension was not constant, but it was memorable. Scenes that should have flowed smoothly occasionally required multiple takes, because the young actresses had different approaches to the same material." Gilbert recalled times when she felt frustrated by what she perceived as rigidity, while Anderson, in turn, sometimes found Gilbert unpredictable or impulsive. Neither was wrong. They simply had different perspectives, personalities, and ways of coping with the pressure of being teen actors in the public eye. Behind the camera, the crew tried to mediate. Directors and producers worked to balance the two girls' energies, knowing that both brought unique strengths to the show. Melissa Gilbert recalls that these moments of conflict were often private, never intended for public consumption. Yet the tension was real, and it left lasting impressions on both actresses as they navigated adolescence. In a professional environment, despite the friction, Gilbert emphasizes that the foundation of their relationship was respect. They admired each other's talents and recognized the challenges each faced. Over time, Gilbert learned that understanding Anderson's perspective and her drive for excellence was key to coexisting both on and off screen. She describes these years as formative, teaching her patience, empathy, and the importance of communication. By the end of this chapter, Gilbert's reflections make one thing clear: the story of her relationship with Melissa Sue Anderson is not one-dimensional. It is a story of growth, occasional conflict, and mutual respect, a behind-the-scenes portrait that contrasts sharply with the polished performances fans saw on screen. The teenage struggles, disagreements, and learning moments helped both actresses mature, shaping their professional and personal lives long after the cameras stopped rolling. As Melissa Gilbert reached her 60s, she finally felt ready to speak openly about what truly went on behind the scenes with Melissa Sue Anderson. Over the years, rumors and speculation had surrounded their relationship, with fans wondering whether tension, rivalry, or personal disagreements had colored the famous on-screen sisterhood. Gilbert, now reflecting on decades of life experience, decided to reveal the truths that had been carefully held private for so long. One of the most significant revelations was how competitive pressures subtly influenced their interactions. On a show like Little House on the Prairie, where every scene was closely scrutinized, mistakes or improvisations could lead to tension. Gilbert explains that while the actresses were close friends in many ways, there were moments when professional ambition made things complicated. "We both wanted to shine," Gilbert admits. "Sometimes that meant our approaches clashed, and we didn't always see eye to eye." She goes further, describing instances where misunderstandings created long-lasting impressions. A joke taken the wrong way, a delayed cue, or a difference in acting style could escalate behind closed doors. For teenagers growing up in front of the camera, these small conflicts often felt monumental. What viewers assumed was a flawless bond wasn't always smooth. It was built through negotiation, compromise, and learning to coexist despite differences. Yet Gilbert is careful to emphasize the positives. Melissa Sue was talented, driven, and smart. "I learned a lot from her about discipline and focus," she recalls. Many of their disagreements became opportunities for growth, teaching both actresses valuable lessons in communication, empathy, and patience. Gilbert notes that these lessons extended far beyond the set, influencing her personal relationships and her understanding of human dynamics as she matured. Perhaps the most surprising revelation comes in Gilbert's acknowledgement of the emotional toll of fame at a young age. Balancing school, personal life, and a demanding television schedule created stress that often magnified minor conflicts. She admits that there were days when both she and Anderson struggled under the pressure, and that some misunderstandings were fueled by sheer exhaustion rather than ill will. Recognizing this, Gilbert views their teenage disputes with compassion rather than resentment. By the end of this chapter, it becomes clear that Gilbert's relationship with Anderson was deeply layered, marked by friendship, occasional tension, and mutual respect. The experiences they shared, both challenging and rewarding, contributed to shaping the young actresses into the women they became. This part of the story, previously hidden from public view, finally provides fans with a nuanced understanding of life behind the scenes, a world where talent, ambition, and adolescence collided under the relentless gaze of television cameras. As Melissa Gilbert reflects on her life and career at 61, she finally shares the full story of her relationship with Melissa Sue Anderson, revealing not only the struggles and misunderstandings of their youth, but also the lasting bond that emerged from those early experiences. While their teenage years on Little House on the Prairie were filled with pressures, conflicts, and occasional tension, Gilbert emphasizes that time and perspective have allowed her to understand and appreciate the complexity of that relationship. One of the most striking aspects of Gilbert's reflection is her acknowledgement of growth. Both actresses were young, ambitious, and learning to navigate life in the public eye. Their occasional clashes, she says, were not born of malice but of inexperience, differing personalities, and the intense demands of a long-running show. Looking back, I realize that many of our disagreements were simply part of growing up under extraordinary circumstances. Gilbert admits, we were figuring out who we were, how we wanted to perform, and how to coexist in a high-pressure environment. Gilbert also shares moments of admiration and gratitude. She recalls Anderson's dedication to her craft, her focus, and her professionalism, which often inspired Gilbert to elevate her own performance. While there were days of frustration, there were also countless instances of collaboration, support, and friendship, that to learn from one another, balancing ambition with empathy, and ultimately forming a connection that transcended the occasional disputes of their youth. In addition, Gilbert opens up about the emotional and personal growth that stemmed from these experiences, navigating fame, early responsibility, and the challenges of teenage competition taught her patience, empathy, and resilience. She credits Anderson, in part, for helping her understand the value of perspective and forgiveness. By confronting the difficulties of their early relationship, Gilbert was able to develop the skills and insight that guided her in both her personal life and her career long after Little House on the Prairie ended. Ultimately, Gilbert's reflections offer fans a deeper understanding of what life was truly like behind the scenes. Their story is not one of rivalry or animosity, but of real human complexity, friendship tested by circumstances, personalities, and pressures beyond their control. Today, Melissa Gilbert and Melissa Sue Anderson share a mutual respect and understanding that speaks to the enduring strength of their bond. By the end of her account, Gilbert leaves no doubt the journey of their relationship filled with challenges, lessons, and growth was an essential part of her story. It was a relationship that shaped her, taught her about herself, and reminded the world that even childhood friendships in the spotlight are multi-layered, filled with both conflict and love, and ultimately capable of standing the test of time.